For such a time as this, in the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the land lay desolate, weighed down by the heavy chains of Babylonian captivity. A remnant of Israel languished, their hearts longing for the Jerusalem they had lost. Amidst this turmoil, Esther, a young Jewish woman, resided within the opulent halls of Susa, where her beauty captivated the heart of King Xerxes' eye. Yet even as she donned the splendid garments of a queen, within her stirred an unsettling restlessness for her heritage and kin, who remained vulnerable under the ominous shadow of Haman's malevolent plots. As twilight drew its curtain across the palace, Esther gazed from her window, feeling the weight of her royal crown. The grandeur surrounding her felt hollow, devoid of the solace her people sought. Haman, cloaked in power and bitterness, conspired ruthlessly against the Jews, and the darkness of despair thickened in the air, pressing against her heart. Were her days of favor worth the price of silence? It was then that a messenger arrived, a call from Mordecai, her beloved uncle. His words rang with urgency, resonating like a clarion call in her soul. Do not think that because you are in the king's house you alone of all the Jews will escape. Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this, he implored, igniting a flicker of courage amidst her fear. Her heart swelled with the reminder that her elevation might hold the key to her people's salvation. In that moment of fierce recognition, Esther resolved, her spirit aflame with love for her people. To approach the king unbidden was to court death, yet the weight of her duty overshadowed her fears. She gathered her servants and commanded, "Go, gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days. I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." She desired fervently to seek the favor of God during her perilous undertaking. As the hours of prayer steeped in divine petition unfolded, Esther wrestled with her fear. Would her voice pierce the heavens, echoing through the silence that hung in anticipation? With the rising sun on the 3rd day, she adorned herself in royal garments, preparing for a confrontation that could alter the fate of her people. Each step toward the king's court dripped with the tension of faith against sight. Would Xerxes extend his golden scepter to grant her audience? The air crackled with divine expectation. As she found herself before the mighty king, history held its breath, and the moment hung suspended in time. Suddenly, the emperor's gaze softened, and with a gesture of grace, he extended his scepter toward her. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Esther stood poised at the door of destiny, trepidation clinging to her heart, yet undergirded by a fierce resolve. The time for revelation approached. She would unveil Haman's treachery, but as she opened her mouth to speak, a deeper tension brewed. The weight of her people hung upon the precipice of her actions. What divine mysteries awaited? The story beckoned, pregnant with the possibilities of God's unfolding plan, urging her to trust with every breath. Would Esther emerge as a beacon of hope for her people, or would darkness prevail? The answers loomed just beyond the horizon, waiting for the unfolding of God's glorious purposes. Esther, with the weight of her people's plight heavy upon her, stepped forward into the majesty of the court. The opulent surroundings of the palace felt both foreign and familiar. She had been transformed into a queen, yet the heart of a servant beat fiercely within her breast. Her gaze was firmly fixed upon King Xerxes, whose throne loomed large amidst golden tapestries and shimmering jewels, symbols of a power that could both shield and shatter lives. "O king," she began, her voice trembling but resolute, "if it pleases you, grant me a moment of your ear." The air held a profound stillness, as if all of creation awaited his response. The king regarded her intently, the kindness of his eyes softened by his stature. "What is your request, Queen Esther?" "It shall be given to you, even to the half of my kingdom." The warmth in his voice stirred her spirit, yet the truth of Haman's treachery burned fiercely within her. Esther's heart raced as she recognized the delicate dance of diplomacy and desperation. "If it pleases the king," she said, "let the king and Haman come today to a banquet that I have prepared for him." She dared not reveal her intent just yet. The weapon of her strategy lay shrouded in the feast she would provide. King Xerxes nodded with the eagerness of appetite, and a spark of intrigue lit his expression. "Bring Haman swiftly, so that we may partake of this banquet," he commanded, and swiftly, the order was executed. As Esther prepared the banquet hall, she prayed fervently for wisdom. The heart of a queen must navigate the treacherous waters of power with a blend of grace and fortitude. Each dish she placed on the ornate table was imbued with her resolve, and each moment spent in prayer reminded her of the fate of her people. At last, the banquet commenced. The feasting was sumptuous, and merriment filled the air, yet within Esther's heart, a storm churned. As King Xerxes drank wine and laughter echoed against the walls, he turned to her once more. "What is your wish, Esther? Why have you brought us here?" Her pulse raced fiercely. The moment had come. In faith, she raised her goblet and met the eyes of the king. "O king, if I have found favor in your sight, and if it pleases you, let my life be granted me and the life of my people. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain and to perish." A sudden hush enveloped the room, the gravity of her words settling like a leaden weight. Xerxes, startled, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Who is he, and where is he, that would dare to do such a thing? Haman's visage twisted in horror as Esther turned her gaze to him, her voice filled with righteous indignation. "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." Her revelation shattered the opulence of the banquet, and the air crackled with divine tension. Haman's face drained of color, as shock and terror seized hold of him. The king, consumed by fury, rose from the table, the clinking of his goblet falling silent in the light of her revelation. "What treachery is this against my queen? What folly leads to the destruction of the innocent?" As Haman scrambled to plead for his life, the divine suspense hung palpable in the air. In the court of Xerxes, justice was poised to spill over, and the fate of an entire people teetered precariously. But what Esther did not yet know was how far God's plan for her people would reach, and what redemption awaited them beyond this moment of revelation. In the shadow of Haman's sin, the seeds of a greater deliverance were already planted, waiting for the dawn. King Xerxes stood, his countenance darkened by wrath, and he strode out of the banquet hall, seeking air to cool the fever of his fury. Outside, the garden was still, a stark contrast to the tumult raging in his heart. He thought of Esther, his beloved queen, and the revelation that had just fractured his sense of calm. Brought forth by one treacherous soul, the very life of his queen and her people now teetered on the edge of destruction. In the silence of the garden, the reflections of grandeur were shadowed by the reality of betrayal. The king's thoughts sharpened into clarity, steeled by a resolve that coursed through him, igniting the embers of justice within his breast. He was a king, and he would not allow the innocent to be snuffed out in the shadows of deceit. Meanwhile, Haman, beset by panic and dread, sought to appease his master's outrage. He rushed after the king, trembling in fear. "O king, grant me mercy. I acted in ignorance, blinded by ambition," he pleaded, desperation spilling from his lips as he fell prostrate at the feet of Queen Esther, pleading for his life. Yet, the weight of Esther's anguish was heavier than his pleas. She stood firm, love and pain etched on her face, her heart entwined with the destiny of her people. The other officials looked on, hearts gripped by the tension as Haman's treachery became ever more apparent in the flickering light of candle and fate. King Xerxes returned, his gaze fierce yet pained, and he beheld the scene unfolding before him. "What is this?" he demanded, eyes narrowing on Haman now at the queen's feet. "Is it not enough to conspire against her life, but also to lay your hands upon my queen?" His voice cracked like thunder, reverberating through the halls of grain and gold. "No. It was not my intention," Haman cried, fear sparking in his gaze as he realized the peril he faced. Yet his words fell like leaves in autumn, caught in the winds of despair, unable to take root. Esther stood resolute, and with strength beyond mere mortal sense, she remained unfazed by Haman's tactics. "O king," she spoke, her voice steady, "if I have found favor in your sight, let this wicked man's plot be undone. For he seeks not only my life but the annihilation of my people. Let justice be served." The king's eyes, once filled with favor for Haman, now burned with righteous indignation. "What shall be done to this man who has brought calamity upon my kingdom?" They carried Haman away to the gallows instead, with the walls echoing the silence of hearts that once believed his power might shield him. The fortune he had amassed, the influence he wielded, crumbled into dust as divine judgment descended like the wings of a guardian cherub, sweeping across the hallowed halls. In his despair, Haman's final pleas filled the air, but it was too late. The king had blazed a path towards vengeance, his actions finding roots in the depths of a sovereign design. As the decree was sealed, the ripple of Haman's demise spread like wildfire among the people of Persia, awakening hope in those who had been languishing under despair. The Lord's hand guided these events, unseen yet powerful, preparing for the day of their deliverance. Esther's heart quaked with both fear and faith. She understood that the battle had shifted, but an even greater struggle loomed on the horizon. In this moment of justice, a glorious tapestry of God's providence began to unfurl, hinting at a plan that would not only salvage a nation but also testify to God's unyielding might. Yet, as Esther gazed upon the mourning figure of Haman being led away, a sudden conviction struck her like a bolt of lightning. What she did not realize was the extraordinary transformation that awaited them all, one that would echo with glory in the annals of faith, waiting for the triumphant day when God's purpose would be fully unveiled. As Haman was led away to meet the bitter end of his treachery, the atmosphere within the palace shifted palpably. An eerie silence enveloped the hall, where once laughter and feasting ruled. Now stood Esther, the queen whose voice had pierced the darkness of deception, holding the power of both grace and urgency in her hands. King Xerxes regained his composure, yet his heart remained a battleground of conflicting emotions. He surveyed Esther, her beauty indomitable even amidst the turmoil of her grief. "Tell me, my queen," he said, pressing forth, "how shall we ensure that that which has been plotted against you and your people never rises again?" The palace officials, trembling in awe, leaned in, their breaths held in anticipation of her response. "O king, let us issue a decree that my people be protected, that we may rise rather than falter. For the wicked seek our destruction, yet the Lord fights for us," she declared, emboldened by a faith that transcended the fear that had gripped her heart. Xerxes pondered her words, recognizing the heavenly weight they bore. "It shall be done, Esther. I will send forth a proclamation that allows your people the right to defend themselves, to stand against those who would wish to do them harm," he affirmed, his voice firm as the rock of ages. But amidst their plans, an unsettling thought simmered in Esther's heart. "O king, should not Haman's treachery also bear witness to the faithfulness of our God? Let the people remember and understand what the Lord has done this day." With an oath taken upon his royal seal, they dispatched messengers throughout the vast lands of the empire, proclaiming deliverance for the Jews. The news fell like refreshing dew upon parched soil, awakening hope anew in the hearts of the oppressed. Celebrations broke forth as shadows of fear began to dissipate, and where despair once abounded, jubilation took root. Yet, in the depths of her spirit, Esther sensed it was not yet the end. The echoes of past agonies reminded her of the struggle for deliverance still to come. As she looked over the bustling streets, filled with preparations for a feast of victory, she understood her purpose remained. "I must continue to intercede," she murmured, her heart swelling with a newfound calling and urgency. That night, Esther approached the king once again, desiring not just to celebrate the victory but to seek wisdom and guidance for the days ahead. "O king, for our people, I implore you grant me audience with the highest council and those who govern the land. Let me ensure that this victory leads not only to a day of reckoning but to everlasting safety for our lives." The king, moved by her earnest appeal, nodded solemnly. "Rise, my queen, and let it be as you have asked. Your voice will not only echo through these walls but shall resound in the hearts of all who dwell in this empire." As dawn's light began to break, illuminating the kingdom, the people rejoiced, yet Esther remained burdened by the weight of destiny. In her heart, she felt the stirring of divine purpose, one thread weaving through their narrative of hope. And in that moment, the divine tapestry unfurled further, whispering secrets of grace and intervention yet to come, secrets that would be sealed in the annals of faith, awaiting the day when God's eternal plan would be wholly revealed. For she grasped a truth: when the righteous call upon the Lord, he answers and gathers his people. As dawn's golden rays spilled over the tranquil city of Susa, Esther rose early, her spirit aflame with anticipation. The solemn responsibility of her role weighed heavily upon her, yet a fervent hope flickered within her heart. The decree had been sent forth, and the heavens seemed to echo her prayer. Yet deep in her spirit, the echoes of Haman's evil still loomed. "Lord of hosts," she whispered, clasping her hands tightly in prayer as she took her place beside the king, "guide our steps today as the shadows of treachery loom. Reveal your will, O God, and grant your people strength." King Xerxes took his seat, surrounded by his advisers and noblemen. The air was thick with anxious anticipation. "Let us draw forth the rulers of our provinces," he commanded, "for we have much to discuss regarding the fate of the Jews and those who would seek them harm." Esther stood, her heart pounding with urgency. She looked at the gathered assembly, a diverse group with listening hearts, and spoke with clarity, "Noble leaders of Persia, hear me. The hand of God has preserved our lives, and our enemy has fallen. Yet we must ensure that our deliverance extends beyond the day of victory. As the Lord has fought for us, we too must prepare for what lies ahead." Her words, infused with the wisdom of the ages, ignited a fervor in the assembly. The elders nodded, remembering the stories of their forefathers, the mighty hand of God delivering Israel from bondage in Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, and the fall of Jericho. "Let us issue a new decree," one elder proposed, "for the safety of the Jewish people not only today but for all generations to come." The murmurs of agreement spread through the council, and they began to draft a proclamation that would safeguard against further treachery. Meanwhile, Esther continued to intercede with fervent prayers. "O Lord," she cried, "may every heart turn towards you. Stir within this council the desire for justice and peace. Let us not be driven by fear but by the hope and trust we find in your unfailing love." As the proclamation took shape, a stir of excitement rippled through the crowd outside the palace walls. News of protection brought tears of joy to the faces of the Jewish people, who had been oppressed and terrorized. Children danced with laughter, and old men wept with joy, recounting the faithfulness of their God. Then a messenger entered, breathless and pale. "O King, news from the distant provinces. Mordecai, your servant, has been given great favor among the people, and they have begun to honor the decree." Esther's heart soared. She remembered the faithfulness of her cousin Mordecai, the man who had raised her. "Then, let our protection be known far and wide," she declared, courage welling up within her. "May our people rise in unity, emboldened as God has chosen. Together we shall stand, for we are not just a people but a testament of his covenant." The message spread like wildfire through the land, reigniting lost hopes and dreams. The Jews began to prepare for battle, not out of vengeance, but to defend their lives and uphold justice, clinging to the promises of God. Yet, as Esther knelt in prayer later that night, she sensed a profound mystery beneath the surface of their triumph. "What does this unweaving tapestry mean, O Lord?" she whispered. "In this moment of victory, what trials yet await us? For your thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and your ways are not our ways." In his stillness, she felt the gentle assurance of God's presence, whispering of an even greater deliverance to come, a sovereign plan unfolding like the petals of a blooming flower, mysterious yet powerful. And as she surrendered her burdens to the Lord, a new understanding dawned: the path to victory would not only be marked by deliverance but, unknown to her, by an even greater act of salvation that would echo through generations. Little did she know, the unfolding of God's plan was only just beginning. As night fell over the city of Susa, the whispers of the Jewish people filled the streets, a chorus of praise rising up to the heavens. Hearts once heavy with dread now found solace in the promise of protection. In homes and gatherings, the faithful recounted the goodness of the Lord, remembering how he had moved mightily among his people. Esther, however, remained on her knees, her spirit yearning for clarity. "Lord Almighty," she implored, "your people have rejoiced, but I seek your discerning hand. We have seen the mighty fall, but darkness still lingers. What further test shall we face?" In the stillness of the palace, the air thickened with expectation. The echoes of her plea seemed to linger, drawing the attention of the heavens. As dawn approached, a soft light began to pierce the dark. The dawn was a symbol of hope and renewed strength. "It is in your earnest seeking, dear Esther," a voice reverberated in her spirit, "that I will reveal my greater purpose." With renewed vigor, she rose, ready to face the impending trials. An assembly was called once more, a gathering not just of the noblemen, but representatives from every province, each voice a ripple in the fabric of Persia's great tapestry. The king, attuned to the heartbeat of his people, knew the moment was ripe to fortify unity. "Let the edict carry forth," proclaimed Xerxes, "to establish a day of protection for the Jewish people, a day of remembrance for what the Lord has accomplished." Honor and respect flooded the scene, yet darkness still loomed in the shadows. A stark reminder of Haman's treason lay heavy upon the council. The leaders conferred, and as they spoke, a different narrative began to unfold. Mordecai, wisdom etched in his gaze, rose to address the assembly. "O people of Persia, let us not forget that true victory is born of righteous living. Shall we carry forth the legacy of our forebears? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is not merely a spectator. His covenant stands everlasting." Yes. The crowd erupted, voices harmonizing in the yes of faith. They recalled stories of Goliath falling, of fire and lions, of the strength faith brings. And so it was ordained that a further proclamation would be issued, one not only to protect but to elevate the status of the Jews within the empire. "For the Lord speaks life into the lifeless," Esther declared, her eyes reflecting the fire of her faith. Months of pent-up fear and uncertainty began to ebb away, the Spirit of God surged within their hearts. Yet, an inkling of trepidation whispered to Esther. In her quiet moments, she contemplated the path ahead, aware that greater deliverance often comes through greater trials. "What lies beyond this proclamation, Lord?" she murmured, sensing an unseen battle rustling in the distance. On the eve of the decree's impending announcement, an ill wind began to stir as spies fed secrets to the treacherous few. Unbeknownst to the spirited assembly, Haman's machinations had not ceased. Within the shadows, a sinister force rallied, intent on unwinding the hand of Providence. Esther's resolve was tested, heavy lies often disguising itself as truth, placing doubt where faith had flourished. In the quietude of the palace, a stillness reigned, yet Esther sensed a turning. What if this act of righteousness incites fury upon us again? She pondered aloud. Must we stand and face this storm again? The Holy Spirit soothed her, reminding her of the narratives past, of Joseph, Daniel, and the trials that birthed triumphs. Her heart resonated with the hope of the covenant. Then, as she grasped the promises echoing in her heart, she understood, though the winds may howl and shadows linger, God's faithful hand would not waver. Unseen, yet ever present, the divine tapestry was unfolding, and the next act in this sacred drama was preparing to burst forth. "Let it come," she whispered, "for I know my God is a deliverer." And as sheets of parchment were inscribed with the decree, a divine tension filled the air, leading to the brink of destiny. The question of Esther's heart hung heavily upon her lips. What was this plan that lay hidden beyond the veils of oppression and glory? A prophetic whisper floated through the moment, promising, God's sovereign plot was not only an act of deliverance, it was a precursor to the greatest deliverance the world had yet to know, a seed of salvation sown in the hearts of the faithful. As the sun's first light seeped into the corners of Susa, a deep stirring arose within the hearts of the assembled multitude. A day of proclamation had been set, a day that might either cradle hope or yield despair. Esther stood at the forefront, her hands trembling, yet her spirit aflame with courage. The air bristled with both anticipation and dread, a palpable tension weaving through the crowd like threads of a tapestry. Mordecai. She called out, her voice slicing through the murmurings. What shall we do when the decree is read? Wisdom is our lamp, but knowledge is our task. Her heart raced, for she sensed the heaviness of Haman's plot lingering, an evil shadow waiting to engulf them. Mordecai stepped forward, his presence calming. Esther, do not find terror in what you cannot see. The Lord is our stronghold, his plans shall not waver. Remember our ancestors, he delivered them from the hand of oppression. Trust, dear niece, for he fights for us when we cannot fight for ourselves. A hush fell over the assembly as each listened intently, hearts pulsing with the echo of hope in the face of fear. As the king's heralds prepared to announce the decree, the atmosphere thickened with suspense. Esther withdrew into herself, prayer marking her countenance. Lord of hosts, she whispered, her breath a soft plea, guide our steps today, for we are but a remnant seeking your favor. Meanwhile, in a distant chamber, Haman plotted maliciously, his anger festering. How dare they rise against me? He growled to his inner circle. They shall pay for their arrogance. I will crush them in the light of the king's favor. Darkness cowered beneath the weight of his treachery, but little did he know the true intentions of the Almighty were weaving deeper truths in the fabric of fate. The heraldess' voice rang forth, breaking the tension in the air. Hearken! By the decree of King Xerxes, a day shall be set for the Jewish people. A day of their deliverance, and their right to defend themselves against any threats that may arise. A cacophony of voices erupted, shouts of joy, cries of relief cascaded through the streets of Susa, reverberating through homes and leading to prayers of thanks. Yet amidst the jubilation, Esther's heart was burdened still. Be vigilant, she urged the people, for shadows linger. Let us not grow complacent in our joy but prepare for the battle that may yet come. Her words resonated deep within the assembly, awakening a sober awareness. The joy of liberating news is often tempered by the harsh reality of a lurking foe. They gathered, united in purpose, to seek the Lord in earnest. As the days rolled into a blur of preparation, adversities neither forgotten nor ignored awaited them. The Spirit of God moved upon Esther, revealing layers of the wilderness they would have to traverse. For you have been chosen for such a time as this, she remembered hearing, and her heart embraced a deeper calling. Though tides of uncertainty and fear threatened to consume every moment, she sensed the grand design of God preparing to unveil, a mosaic stitched with trials and triumphs alike. It would not merely be a day of protection, it would lead to revelation and blessings far beyond her comprehension. Could the Lord be orchestrating a greater deliverance? She pondered, her spirit both anxious and eager. A profound understanding began to rise within her. This confrontation was but a prelude to the unfurling of God's redemptive plan. And before her, the dawn of destiny awaited. The excitement and anxiety danced, entwining as one the will of God whispering through the chaos. Who knows, she breathed, searching the horizon with faith as her guide, perhaps this trial shall reveal the masterpiece of His love and mercy. God's sovereign plan, shrouded yet near, loomed ahead. What transformation may this tumultuous journey yield? Only the unfolding of His will would reveal the miracle that awaited, a bridge leading from despair to hope, from oppression to liberation. As the dawn's warmth bathed Susa in golden light, the hearts of the populace pulsed with fervent anticipation. Esther, though burdened, was resolute, her mind aflame with thoughts of deliverance and her people's fate. She gathered her strength, cloaked in purpose as she prepared to face the peril that awaited. Prepare yourselves, she called to them, her voice steady despite the tumult within. Today, we stand not only for our own salvation but for the glory of our God. He has not forgotten us, she spoke with conviction, her words cutting through the thick air like a beacon of hope. The day of their proclamation was at hand, and all eyes turned toward the palace where the king's authority would soon echo across the land. Esther drew closer to the gathering, feeling the weight of a multitude's expectations. Would Xerxes stand as an ally, or would he bend to the influence of Haman, the adversary cloaked in deceit? Meanwhile, Haman seated in his chamber, plotting retribution against the Jews. He could hear their prayers and celebrations from afar. Let them rejoice while they can, he hissed, eyes aflame with ambition and malice. Soon, their laughter will be silenced beneath my heel. He reveled in his dark aspirations, oblivious to the spiritual warfare raging just beyond the veil of his understanding. At the appointed hour, the heralds once again filled the air with their proclamation, "By the authority of King Xerxes, let it be known." Their cries unraveled the tension, scattering through the streets, igniting both hope and dread anew. The Jewish people are granted a day of reprieve. They shall rise to defend their lives and their legacy. The declaration gripped the assembly, voices lifted in praise and prayers of thanksgiving to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The echo of their worship soared, breaking the weight of despair that had loomed so heavily. Yet still, Esther's heart trembled with what she had seen in the depths of prayer, a foreboding that accompanied every miracle. "Mordecai!" she called, her voice now laced with urgency. "Gather our people for prayer and fasting. Seek the face of the Lord, for the battle is not ours but his. We must ask him to prepare the hearts of the king and to blind the eyes of our enemies." As the days unfurled, the people united in solemn devotion, each heart craving divine intervention. Across the city, prayer rose like fragrant incense, as they implored the Lord for mercy. And, beneath the weight of their collective supplication, an unseen hand began to weave the tapestry of their deliverance. On the eve of their destined confrontation, a heaviness enveloped Esther as she lay in her chamber, her spirit restless. "Lord," she murmured, "you have placed me here for such a moment. But grant me strength and clarity, for I fear the king's heart, and the bid for my people's life weighs heavily upon me." That night, as she lay awake, she received a glimpse of divine assurance enveloping her in peace. "Fear not, for I am with you," the whisper resonated in her spirit. "Your willingness to stand in the gap is not forgotten. A greater plan unfolds through your obedience." With renewed courage nourished by prayer, she silently vowed to approach the king, regardless of the potential for peril. With her heart fixed upon the darting hope of the unseen, she resolved that this divine moment could unlock the very doors of destiny. But unknown to them all, Haman was devising another scheme, one that threatened to eclipse the very fate Esther sought to alter. As he strode forth with his edict of vengeance, the pathway of their deliverance seemed shrouded in shadows. What greater work does God have in store for those who trust in his lavish mercy? Suddenly, a voice echoed through the air, both haunting and hopeful. "For now is the time of reckoning, when I bring forth the promise of salvation, nothing shall stand in my way." And so, the climax of divine purpose approached, crackling with the power of revelation, waiting to unfold. At the break of dawn, a solemn quietude hung heavy in the air, interrupted only by the distant rustling of leaves in the stillness of Susa. Esther, her heart a battleground of fear and faith, rose from her restless sleep. The time had come. She dressed in her royal garments, each piece a reminder of the burden she bore, yet also of her divine calling. With every step toward the throne, she repeated her prayer fervently within her spirit, "Lord, grant me favor in the eyes of the king." Her voice was but a whisper, but the weight of her faith carried the urgency of an entire nation's hope. She approached the grand hall, the air thick with expectation, as the guards eyed her with a mixture of respect and caution. As she entered the king's presence, a hush fell over the court, a divine silence, as though heaven itself paused to witness the unfolding of destiny. King Xerxes, adorned in royal splendor, sat upon his throne. With an eye that pierced the very core of her being, he turned his gaze toward Esther. In that moment, the ultimate test of courage bore fruit. "Queen Esther," he spoke, his voice resonant, but laced with authority. "What is your request? It shall be granted to you, even to half my kingdom." Taking a deep breath, Esther bowed low, her heart racing like a drum in the stillness. "If it pleases the king," she began, her voice trembling yet steady, "let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared for them." Cloaked in wisdom, she anticipated that this invitation would serve not only as a meal but as a divine springboard for the revelation she needed to deliver. The king, intrigued, smiled in agreement, a sense of curiosity igniting within him. "Bring Haman at once," he commanded, sealing the day with an undeniable gravity. As they gathered at the banquet table, the rich fragrances of spiced meats and fine wines enveloped the atmosphere. The laughter of Xerxes mingled with Haman's, each unaware of the undercurrents of tension that ran beneath Esther's surface. "Esther, what is your desire?" Xerxes inquired once more, leaning forward, his attention solely on her. The moment felt suspended in time, each second an eternity. "King, if I have found favor in your sight," Esther began, her voice carrying the weight of her people's plight, "let my life be given me at my request, and my people at my petition. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated." The words fell like thunder in the quiet space, breaking the festivity with an unexpected depth. The king's expression shifted, confusion etched into his brow. Who is he, and where is he, who would dare presume to do such a thing? The atmosphere electrified as the essence of justice aroused within Xerxes, haunting shadows swirling about Haman, who stood frozen, realization dawning and dread seeping into his heart. Esther, emboldened by the Spirit, pointed a finger at Haman. "This wicked man is our adversary. He seeks our destruction and has cast lots to execute it." The court gasped, the revelation gripping each heart present. The king's fury ignited like fire, and in an instant, he rose from his throne, his wrath aimed at the one who had betrayed the very nation under his authority. But unbeknownst to all gathered, the Lord was threading a deeper tapestry through these events, for even as Haman sought the downfall of the Jews, God was working a plan of redemption and deliverance. "Your day of reckoning has come, Haman," proclaimed Xerxes with unyielding resolve. "What meant for evil, God has turned for good, as he prepares to save his chosen people." Thus, as the tension reached a peak, it became evident that the stage was set, not just for judgment but for an unfolding of providence, that salvation was on the horizon for God's people, bigger than they could comprehend. What divine twist awaited in this unfolding drama? In the hearts of his faithful, God was weaving grace amidst strife. Could this moment be the turning point of an unyielding destiny? There, Jacob's God prepared the way, revealing his sovereign plan, a plan that would ultimately bring glory to his name. In the wake of Esther's bold declaration, the court pulsed with a curtain tension, as the reality of Haman's treachery rushed to the forefront of every mind. King Xerxes, once wrapped in ignorance, now bore the mantle of fury upon his shoulders. His heart, which had harbored Haman's deceit, transformed into an instrument of justice. The king's eyes widened, his voice ringing with royal authority and righteous indignation. "Seize this man," he thundered, pointing at Haman, who trembled beneath the weight of his unveiled sin. Fear gripped Haman's heart, the walls of his ambition collapsing as the truth exploded forth. The very foundation he built upon deceit was crumbling, and the court rushed to obey. As Haman was led away, a stillness blanketed the palace, muted gasps echoing in disbelief. Esther's heart raced, she had faced her fears and stepped into the flow of God's providential plan. Within her, a spark of divine courage ignited hope among her people. In that divine moment of reckoning, King Xerxes turned toward Esther, his fierce expression softening with newfound clarity. "Tell me," he implored, "how shall we ensure that this evil man's plot against you and your people never arises again?" Esther, strengthened by the Spirit, stepped forward, the burden of her people's suffering echoing in her heart. "O King, let an edict be issued to protect my people, that they might rise and defend their lives, for the wicked plot against us while we stand in the hands of our God," she declared, her voice steady, powerful, echoing through the hall like a divine decree. Xerxes' brow furrowed in thought. "It shall be as you say, Queen Esther." His awareness of the gravity of her request enveloped the room. The king turned towards his scribes, instructing them to draft a new decree, one that would proclaim the rights of the Jews to defend themselves against any who sought their harm. The ink dried upon the scrolls, sealing the fate of the covenant people, and the heart of Esther soared as faith met action. As Mordecai stood among the crowd, his heart swelled with pride and gratitude. God's hand was evident, transforming tragedy into triumph. Esther watched as murmurs of hope spread like wildfire, awakening her people from despair. "Declare it from the rooftops," she exclaimed, her spirit aflame. "Let every household prepare for what the Lord has done, for he will fight our battles." Days passed, and a wave of solidarity surged through the Jewish community. Each heart united, and fervent prayers rose before the throne of grace, seeking divine intervention as warriors donned their armor. On the day set for their deliverance, they gathered, emboldened by faith. In the quiet moments before the tumult, Esther led her people in prayer, her voice lifted to the heavens, echoed through the gathered throng. "O Lord of hosts, strengthen our hearts as you have promised to fight for us. Grant us courage in the face of darkness and the wisdom to act righteously." The gates of Susa swung open, revealing the steadfast determination of a people reclaimed. In the distance, voices called forth, cheering the risen tide of hope. As they began to rally together in anticipation of their defense, the weight of Esther's heart opened to a profound understanding that this was not merely a struggle for survival, it was God's magnificent plan of redemption unfolding in ways they may never fully comprehend. And in that moment, in the hearts of the faithful, light broke anew as victory stood on the horizon. Mordecai and Esther, champions of their people, beheld the beauty of God's faithful sovereignty woven through their perilous journey, a tapestry shimmering with hope and love. As sunlight broke over the horizon, bathing Susa in golden light, laughter mingled with tears of joy, a celebration of hope fulfilled, a foreshadowing of deliverance. In the shadow of despair, faith had blossomed anew, and the resilient Jewish people readied themselves at God's command. From that day forward, Esther and Mordecai not only became symbols of courage but pillars in the faith of their people. Their story resonated across generations, ebbing and flowing, the perfect testament to God's unbreakable covenant and faithfulness. They witnessed the true nature of the battle fought, not with swords and shields, but with prayers of hope and unwavering trust in God's providence. Celebrations filled the streets, a new festival dawned, a remembrance of God's mighty hand in their history. Through Esther, the world learned of a Savior yet to come, whose ultimate act of deliverance would witness God's people from every nation rise to life everlasting. As the sun set on that joyous day, Esther whispered a prayer of gratitude. "For such a time as this, O Lord, we have seen your might and mercy." The story of hope, redemption, and divine sovereignty continued, echoing through generations, proclaiming that when God's people call, he hears, he answers, and he delivers. Now, beloved friends, if you've been inspired by this wondrous tale of faith and courage, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Don't miss the next powerful biblical stories that have transformed the lives of so many. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm, illuminating hearts with His grace. And I invite you to comment your reflections, sharing how this biblical story has impacted your faith. Let's gather in testimony, celebrating His goodness together. Finally, be bold and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Every soul deserves to experience His love.